We're just going to get started, even though we may have a few more people trickling in, as John says. We have found that most people view this once they're home and on their computers. So we're a small crowd, but we're mighty. And very
Mhm.
excited to
Yes.
welcome Leo Partible this morning. And John and Leo are friends, and I just had the fun time of meeting him earlier this week. And as I said to him, I could talk to him all day. He's got so much knowledge about
Agreed.
things and really interesting perspective. Good morning, everybody. So
Morning,
John
everyone.
and I are thrilled to have him here. John's going to introduce him with some more information, but thanks for being here and take it away.
Yeah, welcome everybody to another Saturday story session. Just want to point out that our last two story sessions, our replay videos are on YouTube, so you can check those out now with Gavin Booth and Todd Gallicano. But today, I'm so excited to welcome my friend. And genius in a way, when you, as Robin said, when you talk with Leo, you never know what direction it's going to go, but it's going to be interesting and you're going to learn Mhm. something. I've
Yeah,
learned so much in terms of film, history, and pop culture with just talking with him. It's always so fun. So I'm glad you get to experience this with us. But Leo is a versatile storyteller. So he weaves stories through filmmaking, comic books, and music. He's contributed to several books, including The Gospel According to Superheroes, with a foreword by Stan Lee, y'all. His public speaking includes panels and lectures at UC Berkeley, Azusa Pacific, Biola, as well as pop culture gatherings, including Stan Lee's Kamikaze back in the day, the Hollywood Black Film Festival, and the San Diego Comic Con. Leo's been interviewed by NPR, The Atlantic, Monthly, Publishers Weekly, The Washington Post, Fanboy Radio, and many more. And so happy to have him here today because he's going to probably talk about all of that, but also, as you know, talk about his recent interests and use of AI and how to use that responsibly as a creative person. So, Leo, thank you and welcome.
Hi, everyone. It's great to meet everyone.
Leo, would
So
you,
where do we
I know,
start?
yeah, I gave just a very basic summary, but could you maybe tell us just a little bit more about, maybe some highlights from your career, some specific things that kind of brought you to where you are today? Because you've really have dabbled in a lot of different um, creative endeavors. As I said, with your music, I mean, you've done rock music, you've done films, you've worked on comic books, etc. So, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today and how you're using those skills and experiences now.
Yeah, I've got various backgrounds. I've been signed to a record label and dropped. I have a background in animation and in comic books. Worked as a storyboard artist. Wow, it's just a lot of different things. I've worked as a film executive as well. So I have a bigger picture of things in terms of how the entertainment industry works. Uh, so I'm trying to I'm trying to truncate everything into a small because what
Hmm.
happens is that when you guys know how sometimes I go into these deep dives into literally everything. So I want to give you a little bit of background on there. I've transitioned into a filmmaking. I'm a writer, director, producer, an actor. I have a background in theater also, so that's for Robin. Um, and so I transitioned into filmmaking as a director because I could do everything. I could literally do my animation, I can do my comic books material, and I can act. In fact, I've got a rock and roll film that I'm finishing up right now, editing, and it's called The Trouble with Love. And it's I wrote it, directed, starred, did all the music, produced it all. Gosh, sometimes when I start talking about this, I start getting bored by myself. So it's like, uh, but
Well, tell us
it,
why
it
you decided to do all those fulfill all those roles for this particular film? I mean, I would say it's because of your background, but what how did that work for you experience wise instead of like bringing using all of those roles in one project? Like how was that experience for you?
Yeah, and also in addition, I've got two documentaries I'm working on as well too. So I do all my own compositing, and I do all my own special effects and sound design. And the reason is what happened was I started. Uh, I mean, I really my first love is filmmaking. I shouldn't say that. Actually, comic books were my first love, but just storytelling and that in general. And what happened was I when I got into filmmaking, it's a community. You've got to get people together, gather people up to work on your project, and it sometimes schedules don't work. So a lot of my friends were working on a lot of different films and television. They offered to do editing for me and special effects and everything. It was great. The, the but the time schedules weren't, there were times when, I've had people they were working on something like Spider-Man No Way Home, and it's like, "Oh, okay, I'd love to help you, but I'm just working on this right now. I just don't have time. But as soon as I clear up, I'll help you." Or people would do sound design that, offered and editing. So what I ended up doing was I laid everything together and just said, okay, all you have to do is jump on it and finish the rest of this, and we can take it from there. Well, what happened was I ended up loving compositing, doing special effects because it's very tied into to animation, and because I have a background as a musician in the music industry, I just felt like I needed to have a control of all the sound design and everything, color correction, and and for me being a film fan, uh, I just I've had these arguments with friends because they would say you can't be a true auteur in film, and I said yes you can. I don't understand what you mean. It's like, well, because you're not doing everything, and I said, but I ended up doing everything, literally everything. I mean, I still have a cast and I still had a small crew, but a lot of this stuff is run and gun, especially when I shot over in Singapore and in Vegas, uh, and of course jumping on and off the plane. That was literally that was kind of a challenge to do, but it was really fun. So I felt like
You
I
mean,
need
I'm
to
sorry,
learn all of
jumping
this.
off a plane literally as part of the movie? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I shot
Oh,
sequences in the plane,
oh,
and and also so positioning the
Did
camera in certain
did the
ways.
airline know you were going to do that?
Well, there's so many people that are vloggers everywhere.
Hmm.
They've
yeah,
got cameras positioned everywhere, and it's
Right.
almost like, you know what, this is a golden age for filmmakers because I don't think there's no permits for that
cameras,
type of
yeah,
thing.
are ubiquitous these days, for sure.
Yes, and
Hmm.
there's a group of people on YouTube called the YouTube New Wave, where they're actually taking long form videos, and it's very much like the French New Wave, where it's experimental, it's and it's also personal, and they're making their lives into motion pictures, and they're also doing hyper realistic versions of their lives. So I think that's what drew me in this new way of thinking in terms of filmmaking and storytelling, where we can actually control everything that we do, and we could do things ourselves. I know a lot of my filmmaker friends really hate that they about doing things themselves, because a lot of my friends tended to be from the old school where you're specialization, and if you're a director, you're just a director, or you could edit your own material and whatnot, but leave it to quote everybody else. Like, you need a cinematographer, you need this kind of thing. Well, for me, of course, some of my some of my inspirations are like the obvious would be like a Steven Spielberg or George Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola. all the way up to Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese. But also my influences were kind of the blaxploitation films, uh, grindhouse films of the 1960s and 1970s, indie movement like John Cassavetes and Melvin Van Peebles. Especially, I really love the French New Wave because I'm a huge fan of um,
Mm.
people like Jean-Luc Godard and then of course in Italian Federico Fellini. Yes, Francois Truffaut. Just the best.
Yep.
400 Blows.
Yep. One
Can't
of my
stop watching
favorites.
that, right?
Hmm.
And then Michelangelo Antonioni and Agnes Varda, anyone from the left bank in French New Wave. I mean, actually, the left bank movement. That would be, but te but technically, she would also be the godmother. Agnes Varda would be the godmother of French New Wave. So that type of filmmaking really attracted me because it was very free form, and you could insert uh, and this is where the comic book aspects later came. Once I actually found out that there's a reason why this occurred in French New Wave and Italian neorealism, where they would insert essays, visual essays in the middle of it of the narrative, and they would do all these experiments in terms of form and narrative, and uh, and I found out it was actually years ago. I interviewed Stanley for a magazine, and at one point he was going to hire me, but then he passed away, unfortunately. But Stan had told me that he was really good friends with Alain Resnais, who was
Mm.
one of the French New Wave. I don't know if you've ever seen, if
Hmm.
anyone's ever seen. Uh, um, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out. Um,
Me too.
Mon
He's
Amour.
done a lot. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Hiroshima Mon Amour, Mon
Yeah.
Amour, right?
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's people like Chris Marker who directed La Jetée.
Hmm.
It's one of those films
Precursor to
where
12
I
Monkeys.
can't believe. Right, it was a inspiration for 12 Monkeys, but also it was shot just with photographs. It's
It's
and
very
it's and it's
effective.
just sounded. Yeah. So that type of filmmaking really, and Stan Lee had said, they used to come in, Federico Fellini used to come in the Marvel offices, and Fellini at one point was supposed to direct Flash Gordon and Dino De Laurentiis was going to produce it, and then that turned into, George Lucas asked him, he said, well, I'd like to direct Flash Gordon. He said, but Fellini's going to direct Flash Gordon. Who are
Hmm.
you? At the time, because he has just done THX 1138, and Lucas just said, you know what? He just turned it into Star Wars. So that's something that you know you want to take your losses and turn them into victories.
And
So
yeah, and
And
what I like,
that
love
good.
hearing all these anecdotes about filmmakers of yore and how cool that you got exposed to them. And I think, they had all kinds of excuse me, speaking of George Lucas, all kinds of tools that they used that were sort of controversial at the time,
Hmm.
that were, actually bordering on AI. And
Hmm.
nowadays, with AI
Mhm.
being so prevalent, for writers, it's really important to have some strategies about how to use this incredible tool without selling your soul and or selling out. And we'd love to hear how all your those lessons from the past have you've been able to integrate into your work now.
Yeah. So in regards to AI, for me personally, I don't believe it to be something that should be, it should not replace human creativity.
Right.
There's a difference. Most people don't seem to understand. I think people don't haven't understood. They don't have an understanding. There's a difference between generative AI and then also assistive AI. And I use AI as assistive. So that just the same way. So whether I'm doing film or music. I don't use it for my comic books, but I would use it as assistive for animation.
Hmm.
I I would use AI the same way that I'm using AI. I'm using samples or anything else, uh, technology for when I'm doing my music right now. But I don't use that as a replacement because I think what happens is that when the technology comes out, everyone thinks that everything like I remember when I think Photoshop came out for comic books and people said we're not going to need inkers anymore and we're this is going to be a replacement for so many different things in terms of comic book work or anime and it really wasn't the case. You still had to draw and also we preferred line art. We preferred there's a certain amount of what's called force when you draw, and that comes from your passion, your taste, and the way that you see us in the world. So we all have different art styles, and so even if I'm using a digital pencil, my pencil still has distinct strokes that reflect who I am. Somebody might go minimalist, other people might go maximalist in terms of the image, but I'd love to use certain kinds of strokes in my work. And same thing for music. You can't I've seen people where they've done, okay, I've got neo soul, I have, this they've resurrected, they've created these AI personas or of the like this 65-year-old jazz musician who's just brilliant and the music is beautiful. But the problem is that it's the humanity behind it, where we all want to know the pain and the pleasures of why this person got into music. And so being a musician, you're a cultural curator in everything that you do, whether you're writing or doing music or filmmaking, first and foremost, you're a cultural curator, and you're also taking everything that you're seeing and you're documenting everything. You're a historian at the same time as well too. And you're
Mhm.
expressing things that can't be expressed by the general public. They want to express something, but we need to actually put it all together. And if you understand poetics, if you've ever read, um, uh, I'm just blanking out. What's it's
Aristotle.
Aristotle's Poetics. Sorry, I just when you think about this, sometimes my mind goes and I have like five different directions right after
Hmm.
that. But anyway, Aristotle's Poetics, when he talks about catharsis and the root word for catharsis comes from the word it reflects the woman's you know uh, menstrual cycle, right? And so that's the catharsis when you have uh, when you create a character that you feel something for him, you feel empathy for the character, but then also you're feeling at the same time. This catharsis is necessary to when you're doing music, you're as an audience experiencing music and watching a movie, and it's actually a feel good. It creates oxytocin and all these other things out of you, and so that's something that AI is not going to be. You're going to listen to the music and say this really feels good, but it's background. It's what we call, what's happened in the way that people are experiencing music and movies. It's the second screen. So Netflix isn't making good movies anymore. They're just making background noise and content. And so this is what's happening. People are going, okay, well, I can do everything that in I've had friends that said, for finally, I can be a rock singer. I can be the great writer that I've always wanted to be. Well, it's not, you're not being that person. You're just typing in, say, make me Shakespeare, make me somebody, make me James Baldwin, make me somebody. And what happens is that it's not you, and everyone knows that. And same thing, it's almost like saying, I won the Super Bowl. And then somebody goes, well, how it is that you won the Super Bowl? Yeah, I scored 7 touchdowns. And it goes like through AI. And it's like, no, I want to know. And I think Robin, I mean, the Bay Area is such a mecca for quarterbacks. So Tom Brady came from there, from San Mateo. Joe Montana. Tom Brady saw Joe Montana when he's 4 years old, freaked out and said, "This is what I want to be." Same as Aaron Rodgers came from the Bay Area. So that we want to see excellence. We want to see the why, how, what was the genesis? Why is everyone going to see Michael Jackson's movie? It's because it's an origin story. It's a superhero story. You watch the movie, and I'm thinking to myself, well, it's they structured they structured it like a superhero story. It's the safest way to do it, I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, but I think that this is something that AI storytelling can't do because you can fabricate something, but we need something even more. Even if I created a mockumentary, like say for example, it's Spinal Tap, if there's still the story behind the story, right? We want to know, why did you guys end up doing this movie and what influenced you? So you go through the influences and inspirations. Whereas AI comes in and says, you come in and say, make me a genius, make me as good as this person, that person. And then it gets the average of everything, of the average intelligence of everything. And so what happens is that it expresses the average of that person. You're not going to
Yeah,
get the
it's not,
best.
yeah, it's like a gatherer rather than as
Mhm,
we talked about the other day, a
Creator.
conductor
Hmm.
or
mhm,
as a storyteller, if you're in an orchestra, you're the conductor.
mhm.
AI really can't do that effectively. There has to be a genesis of, where do this tool, where should I be pointed? Where should I point this tool?
And that's where also having a background in the arts and the humanities is going to be valuable for anyone who's working with AI. AI is mostly going to be assistive. Yes, they're going to eventually use I mean, they're trying to replace. They're making no bones about it. They're trying to replace a lot of people's a lot of jobs, a lot of um, the hassle, in the music industry and the film industry. They don't want to, especially the music industry, they don't want to have to deal with uh, individuals because you have to pay them. And so
Hmm.
they would rather create something fake. And and this is one of the reasons why you don't have rock bands anymore. You only have pop stars that are fabricated. And
Uh,
it seems like people say, oh, they write their own songs, but no, they have 20 people at a writer's camp who craft their material for them. And so they don't have a narrative. They have a narrative that's foisted on them. It's different. Like Bob Dylan created a narrative. He created a mythology for himself. So he's constantly lying about himself. But at the same time, it's like, but it's performance art. So you appreciate that, the fact that he's doing that. Whereas all these other people, they don't they you ask if you ask them about where their influences are, they would just be the generalizations of influences. And so these people don't have actually minds. This is what the music industry wants to do. They want to replace all those things where you don't have to dole out uh, royalties to different people and individuals. And so I think right now with AI, what's happening with how, I shouldn't say we can't really combat because they own it. I mean, there's people that run the world that you can't really change anything about it. The fact that the people are running this world, and but we can be actually understanding about the changes in technology and then actually adapt to it. I think people need to actually adapt to it. So if you are a filmmaker and if you're a writer, for example, there are certain ways that you can do to adapt to AI, which is don't use it. I know that sounds funny, counterintuitive. People said, "Oh, but AI is coming out and it's replacing people." Well, yes, it is replacing. It's not really replacing people. It's adding more slop, you know, to this entire uh, entertainment spectrum. It's just adding slop, number one.
Mhm.
So you don't have to use it. I don't know why people keep saying, well, should I use AI? I'm like, well, if you don't really have ideas, then I'm sure you're going to use AI. I tried like maybe about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I think when ChatGPT came out, my friends said, I remember listen to this. Okay, tell me anything about what kind of story you want to write. Give me a scenario. Give me something, and I would give it to him, and then he would go, listen, look at this, voila. And then he gave me this log line. He gave me this, just everything, and I just thought, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And he just and he, we went through it, and then he gave me about 10 of them, and I just felt like I'm bored. And
Yeah.
he was so upset because he was just like sitting there going, "Why are you? Isn't this brilliant?" I go, "Is this your experience?" I
Well,
mean,
the technology is brilliant, but it's just like after a while, with so much AI around us,
mhm.
I think I can tell now
Yeah,
if
because
something's AI,
familiar.
but maybe it's, I mean, there's also the distinct possibility that AI is way more sophisticated than I am, and I can't tell. But it just seems to have a rhythm, as sort of a pacing, a tone that's
Hmm.
not
It's
it's not
average.
human. It's too perfect in a way.
Yeah.
It's too like
Mhm.
the sentences are complete and the things cycle back. You know, you start with something, there's middle, and then you cycle back to the beginning. And it's just very predictable sometimes. So if you do use it,
Yeah.
it seems like you'd have to be super cautious and, put it back in your own voice somehow. But then isn't that going
And
skirting
make
around?
mistakes. I mean, when
Yeah.
we all write,
Yeah.
even us that have been writing for years, we still make grammatical mistakes or say things or we use localisms or whatever, to enhance our writing. And that seems and feels human. And I think AI takes a lot of that out, unfortunately. But Leo, how would you, to give like some more specific examples, how have you been using AI assistively with your current film project? And feel free to tell us a little bit more about that. I'm not sure if you told us exactly what that's about, but how have you used it in that project?
Yeah, so as a filmmaker, it's very useful for compositing, doing effects, putting, images
Hmm.
together. Uh, I ended up not using maybe cleaning up, for example, tracks. If there's a little bit of noise behind the a track and I need to clean it up and I need to have more presence in the vocal or more just so that I can isolate you know, dialogue and that sort of thing. And then color correcting. Although I love color correcting myself because it's like painting also. I can just, I can just create the contrasts and everything else and target it. And now AI can help with targeting certain places of where you could do contrasts. But I think that's where I love doing utilizing AI, and especially in music, I've dabbled with because I have huge concert sequences and already I've got them in the film, but I thought to myself, oh, I want something big. I want something a little bit more flashy. I should do something where, uh, and so far, every time I've wanted to do that, I said, but everyone else is doing this too. So we're conditioned to seeing a certain kind of concert film. But so I thought, why don't I just turn the experience of what, like, if I'm the audience member, what am I going to target? Seeing the vicin what's around in the vicinity. And so what I did was I just started cutting the way that my eye would be if I was a concert goer. If I was on the stage, I would cut to the stage, and that's a brief moment. If I turned around and there's a person next to me, then there's some concert going dancing, then that's where I focused on. And I created a rhythm based on that. So that was actually much more fun in terms of as a filmmaker, um, doing doing the film in that way. But then also, what it did was also help me creatively, because then I had to pull back into what would Jean-Luc Godard do in terms of, the a film, or what would Federico Fellini? He would actually do an interruption where it'd be a dreamlike sequence, and it goes into surrealism, right? And so I think this is where I want to go tap into, where when there was always a new kind of technology, there's also a new type of art form, right? Because when the photograph came out, the artists said, "Oh, okay, well, we're out. We can't do specialized these paintings for people, and realistic photograph you know paintings, photorealistic paintings anymore." So, but what happened was, you had the arts and crafts movement, you had the surrealists. Suddenly, we discovered Japanese line work, just so many different things, right? You had different movements, and so instead of trying to uh, literally copy real life, which is what AI is doing, but the average of real life, and trying to wow you with things, what it did we did was we went into dreams, we went into symbolism. And so this is what we want to do in terms of writing and art. We want to find a different way. If everyone else is creating AI slop, and this is where I think I want to distinguish the difference between, like, as a filmmaker, yes, we're going to lose a lot of jobs, and we already have.
Mhm.
But we're going to have a lot more filmmakers. We're going to have a lot more polymaths. So now every time there's a movement, there's a shift in technology. We've had a new renaissance, right? Because when we had uh, the, the printing press, suddenly that was the height, that was the beginning of the European Renaissance. And so and later on, there's all kinds of different renaissance that would occur with new technology. So,
Well, unlike CG, I
but
mean, I think we talked about this before of how, we had CG come out strong with Lucas and
mhm,
Spielberg, and people wondered about that. How is that going to shift the job market in terms of people that manually draw versus who need to learn a computer program? So it just kind of shifted a little bit, and I feel like a lot of things that we've been afraid of in the past, that would completely disrupt the industry. They do disrupt the industry, but it doesn't ever end it. People just shift, and the job responsibilities change, so to speak, but nothing really ends. So
mhm.
I think that's really interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up before, because I feel like um, we've all gotten, people used to get afraid of, even when DVDs came out, oh, that's going to ruin, nobody's going to go to the movie theaters anymore. So as every time a new technology comes out, there's always fears, and there should be, because we should be analyzing it and saying, okay, this is new. How do we use it appropriately? And how much is it going to change? So I think you're right on that, okay, let's learn how to use this responsibly, and not be too afraid of it, even though we know some people are losing their jobs, and that's unfortunate. But you're saying you think some jobs will be created as well because of it.
Well, yes, it's just a matter of the medium changes. When the phonograph came out, suddenly people it went from, okay, people had to entertain themselves with pianos, and and so you had to have somebody that could play, and so the sheets were a big business, right? So during
Yeah.
that time, and what happened was the phonograph came out, and then now you could have a personal experience, and listen to music yourself. And so, but then again, I mean, the pianos didn't go away. It just suddenly, you had some kind of vehicle of expression, and to a vehicle where you can listen to music. But
But
then you
very few
also
people
want to,
play piano nowadays compared to,
yes,
back in the day.
yeah, very
And
few
remember, I
people,
mean, the other thing to keep in mind, I think, is how quickly all this is changing. I mean, John, what John just said, just to piggyback on that, I remember seeing, was it Napoleon? Yeah, the movie with Joaquin Phoenix. And that wasn't very
Hmm.
long ago, maybe what, 4 or 5 years ago. And
Hmm.
there was this
Hmm.
big outcry about the fight scenes and how, oh, everything's now going to be CGI.
Hmm.
And what happened to the personal, we can't really. And now it's just like it's so accepted, and it was like a big deal. And part of that is just the improvement in the technology. But yeah, this is a whole new world with what AI is accomplishing, and whether we like it or not, it's here, and we have to find ways to, dovetail our experiences and really be able to be included in this new technology without, abandoning our own storytelling or music making or whatever.
Yes. You know, people aren't going to buy something that says made by AI.
Right.
You know, it just isn't. You're gonna buy something that said that says George R. R. Martin,
Mhm.
wrote, or J.R. Tolkien or C.S. Lewis or any of these other the authors, J.K. Rowling. It just you're gonna want you want the artist, you want to know who wrote it, specifically. And so I think I tell other writers, I said, really I mean, just really go into yourself and then actually express really who you are. Because authenticity, people talk, we've said this over and over again, authenticity is the, you know, is a big thing right now. People are looking for people that are authentic. And I think now is the time to really also to promote writers. Like some of my favorite writers are like Annie Dillard, who's just this brilliant. I don't know if you've ever read, if anyone's ever read her books, but she is just marvelous. She makes nature the smallest things and turns it epic.
Hmm.
And then when you see somebody like Anne Lamott, who's got like a lifetime of pain and
Hmm.
struggle, and just trying to grapple with the spirituality and the humanism around her. And we want to know about that, right? I mean, that no one's going to stop doing that. And so I don't, I would tell other writers, this is why are you worried about something that actually doesn't pertain to you? Do you know what I mean? Just write based on your experience, the way that you feel, and then be obsessive about your own life, about your obsessions. Like make your obsessions our obsessions. Because Annie Dillard, when I sit there, I'm like, man, boy, I'm reading this thing thinking, man, she's really obsessed right here. Right? And you wonder, that's what drew me. I looked at them like what I had a friend of mine would say, you should read her writing. And I said, I know that's this is going to sound bad, but it sounded kind of boring to me. And it's like, and once I got into it, it just opened up a whole world of like you could really look at the world in a certain way and see that really is a miracle, and it's also as big of an event and an epic as if you were looking at the stars. So if you want to be a writer, you should look into your obsessions. Everyone has something that's really unique, and I think what's lost nowadays, I think, well, it's actually starting to come back because I know at least in Asia, uh, they have 150 of Tower Records, and
Oh, wow.
and people buy records and tapes and albums and cassettes and CDs and everywhere in Asia. It's like
Huh.
a huge thing because they love the the journey. It's the journey that we had as kids, where
Hmm.
I really tap into that. Where when I was a kid, I was like, I have to buy this comic book. I have to buy the
Yeah.
CD.
You
And
anticipate
I
it
remember being
coming
a
out.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a danger though. Sometimes you'd like, hey, you want to go over to the mall? But the mall was like 12 miles and you couldn't just ride your bikes, but then there was a bus schedule. If you missed it and you got home late and you're going, Mom, can you pick me up? I mean, that danger of like, getting yelled at, you know. And but I remember going to a comic book shop, and it was like in a bad part of town. I mean, to get to the other side, I had to travel. It was in Marina up in towards Monterey, and but there was this fear. Like like I would sometimes I went alone, and I would be on the bus, and then there's a fear like, okay, I shouldn't be doing this at 10 years old. And I was obsessed about getting that comic book, the
Yeah.
comic book. And same thing with the CDs. You just bought those, or for anybody during that period, whether it's albums or cassettes, CDs, whatever. There's that. Once you got it, you had to know who these people were that you were obsessed about. And so, what's happened is that today a lot of people who are consuming music, it's disposable. And that the thing is about um, the the thing about AI is that it is disposable. People think, oh, it's going to be great. You're going to have this. You're not going to have the Elvis moment. You're not going to have the Michael Jackson moment. You're not going to have the Star Wars moment with AI, because the thing is that, I mean, I think all those days are over. But I think with the unfortunate thing with AI, you're going to be everything is so accessible, and then it's also replaceable. And so people, the thing about art, the AI, the AI art, AI slop. When we're looking at art, so that's the other thing about having to talk about AI. There are levels of uh, differences in terms of how you approach art, where it's the visual. When you're talking about comic books or movies, you know, the reason why that when you see, we call it AI slop, people go, how can you call it slop? It looks like art. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's like it's slop because it throws everything at you. The eye
Mhm.
is not created. We're created to filter everything.
Mm.
And so what happens is that when you see all the colors of the spectrum and everything that's in there, the human mind says, okay, keep moving, because you don't know what you want to focus on.
That's
And
a good
so
point.
when you're looking at an image, you want to know where's the contrast, where's the point of who are you looking at? There's a mise en scène. There's the story within the image. And so it's not just the image. You like, what is the story? And so people, I see some of my friends would put out something that's very AI and said, what do you think about that? And I'm like, I don't, what am I supposed to think? It's just slop, 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 slop. But I had one of my friends, I told him, I said, but if you drew something and there's a story behind it and why you put these particular elements within the frame. This is why we look at Da Vinci's, any painting by Da Vinci, or you're looking at the Last Supper, and then you're looking for clues. Who's that person? Why did he paint that person? Is that Da Vinci? Is that one of his
Yeah,
friends?
yeah.
Is
No,
it,
that's a
there's
really
an air or of a
a great
mystery.
point. That really is, because when you have everything at your fingertips, and this is one of the dangers of kids and screen time and phones and computers, is that, and pediatricians for years have been saying this, it takes away their pondering time. And human beings
Yes.
need that. You need to get
Hmm.
a germ of an idea, think about it. How would I solve that issue? And really think about it. If you have
Go
your
for a
phone, and
walk.
you just look it up, it takes the fun away, really. So
Hmm.
that's why I think we really have to be on alert for using these great tools, but not succumbing, so to speak.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing, is that AI doesn't allow for innovation at all. It's
Mm.
just going to keep you it regurgitates the past. It regurgitates anything that's present, but then it eats itself at some point. You can
Hmm.
ask it to iterate into something more and different, and that's not going to happen. With AI, you need
Even
something.
with more info coming in every
Mhm.
single day, because that's what
Mhm.
happens, right? All the info comes in and it gets categorized and
Mhm.
reutilized or.
Yes. And I think you're
even
not going to
then.
get somebody, yeah, you're not going to get somebody like James Joyce. That's not going to ever happen in AI. And you're not going to get, the because everything is also based
Is
on an
iterative.
algorithm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's based on a present of an algorithm. So you're not going to get, say, for example, it's not going to read. So, I've said this before. I go back to like the 1950s and Elvis comes out during that period. That if there was, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, extended family, everybody listened to the same music. So at that point, they're listening to somebody like a Perry Como or Pat Boone or Teresa Brewer during that period. And so it was very safe in its family hour. Suddenly, and it's also, think about it, it's expensive to be a pop star at that point because you needed an orchestra. You needed
Mm.
everything, all these things, the arranger, everything that's going to be there, the producer. And so this is what they would tell you. But then suddenly comes Elvis and he's got an acoustic guitar and it's a stripped down, a group, and he's doing things that are so forbidden. It's on the other side of where people couldn't afford anything. He's wearing the clothes of what Mexicans and black people, a variation of the Italians and Asians. He's got jet black hair. He's got makeup that is so gay for that period, and so it's coming in, and people are going, I'm having
I
a heart
don't
attack.
understand. Yeah.
They don't understand. And then he's going against all the convention. He
Yeah.
says, I don't need an orchestra and I don't need any of this stuff. I'm moving with the sound and this fury at that point. And remember, this is a new technology. And at that point, uh, there just almost overnight there was a generation gap. Whereas everyone's listening to the same music, now the kids are not listening to mom and grandpa's music. They're listening to something forbidden and something that expresses that era. And again,
That's
there's a
so
lot
interesting.
also there's the fears of there's the Cold War happening. There is the beginning of the civil rights movement. There's so much happening. And so AI could never manufacture something like that, you know because they wouldn't know. If the algorithm says we're all listening to the same thing and we're all having the same fears. You have left and right, and so it's gonna appease that each one of those bases. But now you're not going to have an Elvis or a Michael Jackson or a Beatles, coming in. You're not going to have, that's the other thing with AI. It was everything that happened in the underground, whether it's like Lord of the Rings. Most people don't realize Lord of the Rings became popular because there was unauthorized editions. There was like 5 or 6 publishers in the United States that
Hmm.
actually were printing unauthorized editions of Lord of the Rings, and they sold it, and it just became huge. And then the college
Why were
crowds.
they unauthorized? Was it not allowed to be printed here yet?
Uh, Lord of the Rings wasn't even really that popular, but at that point, it was popular in certain places. But they just didn't think there was a market for that. But there was a lot of shady publishers that just said we're going to steal this thing, and we're going to sell this. And there's unauthorized versions of Lord of the Rings, and that's how it just came about. I mean,
Hmm.
that suddenly there's this boom, and and that's the other thing that's really something that's really difficult for us to kind of because if there's unauthorized versions of your work, there's a you're kind of freaked out about that. But at the same time, that's what happened in China with J.K. Rowling.
Oh, really?
Her work
Huh.
was unauthorized in China. They just, like as in everything in China, there's so much thing that's unauthorized. It exploded.
Yeah. Well,
And something that's also interesting is if your material is really that great and it's because you are a unique individual, we are going to buy the original because that's. Oh God, I'm sorry, Robin. I'll finish it,
oh,
and
it's okay.
you can
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah.
Okay. Well, it's like it's a catch-22, right? Because when you have say something like, you had bands like Pearl Jam and groups like I'm just trying to remember the band that used to tour, Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead. Okay, so Grateful Dead used to tell people, just bootleg my stuff. And Bruce Springsteen had a fan base that just bootlegged. And what was crazy though, that the more that they bootleg, the more they want the original material. And that's what
Mm.
Pearl Jam figured. They said, you know what, bootleg our stuff, but here's some official bootlegs. If you come to our concerts, they had the official bootlegs where it's just like the special, and everyone's like, oh, we got to go get that. We have to go get that. It's like me as a kid. I have to go buy that comic book. I have to buy this and that. And so now the latest one is actually K-pop. When you said BTS, the army, they galvanize. It's all about community, and that's what we also have to understand as artists, as writers. We want to create a community. The BTS was great because people, uh, I'm not saying they allowed for bootlegs. I mean, because people, I'm sure, file sharing and everything else, but at the same time, they're like, but I want the official. Anytime something dropped, even though it's no fun if you're the only one with a bootleg or only a few people, but it's fun when everyone else is there. You can share it, right? So I think some of those things in that case, that helps to a fan base. And so AI can't help you make fan bases, right? Because if you need something to run to, you need something. Back in the day when Stan Lee was doing Marvel comics, he called the Merry Marvel Marching Society, and it was a call to action to everyone. You have to go buy it. This is where we're going to be at this convention. Hey, look, we're in this college. Hey, look, we showed up in an interview on, and people were just they just all the kids and teenagers and college people just ate it all up. And so something that like that, AI can't create that call to action because it won't. It's not real. There's no story behind it. There's a story. Stanley personalized, for all his faults, he personalized Marvel Comics. It said Stanley present. It's like there's a guy behind this. He's overseeing this material. But if you said, "Hey, I'm AI. I created this thing. What do you think?" Sure,
Yeah,
it gets views. It gets views. It gets millions of views, but it doesn't have the kind of thing where I'm gonna I'm gonna treasure. I'm really gonna treasure
there's some
my
books
copy.
and movies and writing and art that just stays with you for your lifetime.
Mhm.
Right.
And there's other stuff that's competent and
Hmm.
easily digested, but it's like
Hmm.
eating a piece of candy. It doesn't
Yeah,
propel you through
fully
the day.
satisfying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does not. And Jonah, I believe, also said that idiosyncratic human mistakes end up sometimes being the best part of the product, which I think is really well
Yeah.
put.
You
Yeah.
you know you know music. There's so many mistakes that
Mhm.
make that song. Like if you listen to Stevie Wonder's Fingertips, and in the middle of Fingertips Part Two, they do a breakdown, and then Stevie's playing his harmonica, and then you hear a guy, I can't remember which musician. He's like, you hear conk conk, what key, what key? It's on the record,
Oh, wow.
and you're like, that's kind of cool. I mean, you listen to the Police, Roxanne, he goes, rocks. I mean, he didn't go through the entire phrasing. You had Sting, and you're like, there's a couple of places there that's wrong. And the Beatles sound is unique because it's not perfect,
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
Ringo's playing left-handed, so there's a hesitation before he hits a beat, and he's not even playing drums the way you normally think a drummer should be playing. John Lennon is playing behind the band. His rhythm is behind everybody else. Paul's got his own groove, but the funny thing about somebody like George Harrison, when he's playing his lead guitar, you're sitting there thinking, this is kind of basic. but kind of cool. But they're all playing out of tune. You can't
Huh.
play a Beatles song in tune. Like I've tried. I sat down. I'm like, wait, this is off. Why am I? It says A. I'm kind of in A, but it's not A. It's just messed up. But you want those kinds of happy accidents to occur, to happen. And AI is not going to allow for a story like Jeff Porcaro, who wrote Human Nature, for Michael Jackson, where Quincy Jones is asking him, "Hey, do you want to, you know, submit some songs?" And then he ran out of tapes, and so on the other side, he sent him a tape with the songs that he wanted to submit for as demos to Michael. But on the other side was Human Nature. He forgot to take it out or just erase it. Well, anyway, Quincy's like, I like that song, and he said that wasn't even a submission. It was actually just a song for Toto originally that they were going to do, but they never did it.
Huh.
And it turned out like Michael really loves this song, and so Human Nature. Well, those happy accidents don't happen anymore, right? If you're gonna make the great music, if you're Brian Wilson, if you listen to God Only Knows, they're playing in two different keys.
Huh.
Certain places they're playing in two different keys, and there's the sound. When you're playing as a musician, there's air. There's air in between. So if you're just make something that's AI created, it's gonna feel hollow because it doesn't have the human, it doesn't have the atmosphere that you need to really resonate with that music. So
Yeah.
I think that's another thing about AI. You're sitting there going, okay, it's disposable, but what made Motown sound like Motown is because it sounded like Detroit. It sounded tinny, it sounded metallic, it had that air to it, and you felt like Motown. It's like this is what Detroit sounded like. This is what San Francisco sounded like. When the Doors are coming in, you're like, oh, is that what what LA sounded like during that period? Is this what Sunset Strip 1980s with Poison? This is what it sounds like. It feels like it. I mean, I do. I don't. It's not an experiment. I just love when every time I'm driving through Arizona or these different places, uh, you 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 align the song, like that Glenn Campbell song. Man, what's
Lineman
it
for the
called?
county
Yeah,
by
it's great because
Jimmy Webb.
it
Yeah.
feels like it because you see it and the entire story unfolds
Yeah.
in front of you. You're driving and it's still like, oh, this is this what he's writing about? And so the experience is not there in AI. They're not going to give you that experience. And so same thing, the narrative, there's also a subtext to J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter when you have the fact that that's her, that's her who she is. It's Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, dealing with the trauma of World War One. And same thing with Lewis, experiencing with
Narnia.
World War II in Narnia, right?
Yeah.
You need that. You need that kind of the background in terms of when you're writing. So this is what I'm saying about with writers. It's like I if you're trying to pitch to be great, to be a big seller, then just use AI, and then you'll be trapped. That's the thing. We don't have really writers' rooms anymore. I mean, writers' rooms are starting to,
Yeah.
in
Shrivel.
television, they're starting to shrink, but they're also now's the time that when you're using verticals, when you're using what the vertical
Hmm.
Format.
storytelling, there are webtoons, comic books, and manga. There are all these different things that you can use. For me personally, when I use AI also as an animator, so I can create the model sheets, the concept art, the backgrounds, and then also the keyframes. But what happens now is that I don't need a team. I can use where it used to be 50 people to animate all the stuff, what's called in betweens, when a character moves from one place to another, or does a full range of movement. Now the AI uses my own material and then fills it in my it for me. So I can literally just do an animation studio between me and another person or a couple of friends, and you can collaborate.
Leah, you said your material, and that's a great transition to we've just hit an hour, but we have a couple of questions that come through the chat box, and we want to
Absolutely.
make
Let
sure
me.
you have enough
Mhm.
time. And I was going to read one for you. I'm going to read the current one first, and we'll go back to Karen's. Which Andy says, please
Mhm.
address how AI trains on our material, literary, screenplay, manuscripts. Can this be avoided?
No. They already trained. If your material was already out there, it's done. They trained on you even before you even knew it. This has been happening for a number of years now. They didn't tell anybody. But at the same time, when we say trained, they've already gotten all your information. Anytime, I don't know if anyone's seen those games. Anytime they all encourage people to play games and everything, and on Meta, on Facebook and everything
Hmm.
else, and I see people they play it, and they're really getting all their data farming. They've been doing it for almost a
For
decade now,
years,
more
yeah.
than that.
Hmm.
They have everything. All your material was already, if you stuck it out there and Google search found it, it was there. It's already there. But what's different about this is that you as a writer are always unique and you always have your own type of iterating. There's always an experimentation. I mean, and also your voice. The thing is that this is the average of everybody's voice. So consider the fact that everybody also AI was trained on everybody's voice. So now you're expressed as one average voice, right? So on the surface, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to try to be Paul Thomas, somebody who tries to do a Paul Thomas Anderson film, yeah, they can try to do a Paul Thomas Anderson film. They can try to do the Steven Spielberg movie, with AI, and or they're gonna do writing based on George R. R. Martin, you know. Uh, but at the same time, I mean, it's the average of a George R. R. Martin. So, who's to say? I mean, why your voice is always growing. There's something that's wonderful about life is that as creators, we should, nature, we should copy what really fulfill the roles of what nature has, what we are in this world, and that is uh, in regards to uh, we're created to grow. There's growth, expansion, and creativity. So long as we continue to do that, we will actually make ourselves distinct. And what happens is that if you don't grow as a writer, you should actually be growing as a writer forever. For until you die, you should be actually growing as a writer. You should be growing as an artist. Um, so they do train. They've trained, for example, uh, in writing. I saw this. Andy has this one where it's like how AI trains on literary screenplays, right? They've already trained every single. It's been fed into the machine, like structures and beats and notes and everything else. And so all that they have to do is what they do is, um, if they're going to write a story, they're going to get the average story, right? If you're trying to do superhero movie, this is why a lot of superhero movies, to be quite honest, like in recent years, especially the Netflix, they trained everything on AI. So that's why everything is boring because it
Hmm.
opens with the same thing. There's a certain some kind of sameness, and there's no disruption. And so the only thing the thing that you should do as a writer is to actually learn to be disruptive. Don't just watch Steven Spielberg because Steven Spielberg, there's the average of Steven Spielberg and Christopher Nolan. Now, Christopher Nolan throws it all. I mean,
Hmm.
he does weird things. He's disrupting, and I mean, kudos to Nolan when he's casting. and also when he's not trying to be historically accurate. He's actually going up against AI, the average. Like when you see the Odyssey, and people are like going, "Oh, I don't think I like that casting. Well, I don't like this isn't even historically accurate," because like he's not trying to be.
Yeah.
He's trying to tell you a story that will disrupt the AI
Mm.
landscape. You know,
So we've had
so
some really interesting questions come in.
mhm, absolutely.
One, as John mentioned from Karen, how is the use of AI a hindrance to one's own work?
Oh,
She says, I find myself constantly censoring and it's getting in the way of my creativity. And how do you move past that?
yeah, turn off the AI. I've
Yeah,
used AI for like Grammarly, you know,
yeah,
but then suddenly I go, but that's not even fun.
Mhm.
right.
That's the thing that I mean,
It
there's
takes the
certain
fun away. Yeah.
because yeah. So what you want to do is when you write, I mean, there's a common thing which is to do a spit draft when you're writing, and then just throw it all out there,
Hmm.
unedited, right? And then you edit after that. That's where the fun begins because you start editing, but then you start acting. What you do, like I know Christopher Nolan, for example, he would ask Hans Zimmer to when he scored his movies, he would say, you know, don't watch the film, don't watch the dailies, don't watch the cut. I want you to read the rhythm of his screenplay.
Oh, really?
So you read the screenplay, there's a rhythm to it. There's a
Hmm.
pattern. And so that's where we like I teach screenplay poetry. You have to understand there's poetry in the way.
Mm.
So when Quentin Tarantino, he tends to get flowery and verbose like a novel, but but there's a rhythm to it. It's a Quentin Tarantino rhythm, and people try to go emulate that, or they'll try to do the AI. And I saw a friend. He goes like, "He'll let me demonstrate how Quentin Tarantino does this." I'm like, and I would think to myself, well, that was one aspect of Quentin Tarantino, but keep doing it. You think that this is going to be an entire screenplay? Well, there's all these other things that he does to disrupt, and so his filmmaking, you can take the most average of Tarantino's what AI does is that it condenses everything into what we would think a Tarantino movie is about, the things that show up the most often. But then there's the little parts of Quentin Tarantino you go, what is that? And we get angry about it. I mean, sometimes we like trying to. It's like I don't understand. So he has a foot fetish, so the foot fetish shows up, you know. So so sometimes it's like, you know, but at some point you want the disruption. You want to know how to. So you need to go. I would tell writers to go back to uh, French New Wave cinema. I go. Um, there's a great film called L'Atalante. It was actually one of the biggest inspirations for the French New Wave, and I just turn off uh, the sound and learn to write to write visually. That you know, start off learning to write visually, and I mean, there's the different ways of doing it, but you can learn to write visually, and then and tell the story with just visuals, like Annie Dillard, because sometimes a lot of people tend to think that writing is about dialogue, and it's not. You know, dialogue is
Not
an art,
Yeah.
but that's not it.
A friend of
Yeah.
mine who had a play produced in Poland and did not speak Polish went. And he said he learned so much just from listening to the dips where the audience leaned in and where people were really engaged. And when he got home, he rewrote the thing. And
Hmm.
so there is so much more than just the words. Um,
Yeah.
One question that came in that I think
Mhm.
everybody would like to know the answer to, if you've submitted a script to a contest, does that mean that the script has now been folded into AI if it's been submitted via the web? Or can you send a
Not in this.
script?
Yeah.
I guess another question would be if you use email to send things to either a company or it's still private, right? Or not?
I mean, it's as private as what they tell it is, what they
Yeah.
say it is. Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately,
So once you submit something, say to a contest, then it's out in public.
it's out there. There are disclaimers. I mean, I would caution, I would ask people to actually look at what they tell you. They'll say we will, because they'll tell you, whether they train for AI or not.
Oh,
Your material will not be used for AI,
Yeah,
and
that's
so
important
they do have
disclosure.
disclaimers nowadays. So I wouldn't worry about that. But I think at the same time, uh, my art's been out there, and so same thing as my writing. Everything that we've done, it's out there.
yeah.
What the what it comes down to is how do you tell the story? Somebody's going to come in and it's going to sound like the same story that you did, but these versions. I mean, the Odyssey came out. I mean, they had a TV version of it, right? So and now you got Christopher Nolan's version. So it's still it's still going to be different.
Hmm.
Things are it's how you interpret it. It's how fast you play it. It's all your rhythms, and this is why it's important to understand screenplay poetry. Like the screenplay for Dan O'Bannon's Alien was written in haiku or a version of haiku,
Huh.
and so when you read that, you're laughing because it's like it's the breeziest screenplay to get through,
Oh my gosh, I had no
but it's
idea.
really fun
Yeah.
because it's very poetic, and so when you read that, so anyone who can get a hand, I mean, get a copy of Alien screenplay, I urge you to read that screenplay because it's really fun to read, and so you can read.
Huh.
That's
Is
the
that
other
the
thing.
first one with Sigourney Weaver? Is that the one you're talking?
Yes. Hmm.
Wow. I had no idea.
So so you can don't be afraid to I don't know how many people here have already found their voice yet or they're still trying to find their voice, but part of it is let yourself evolve as a writer. Take things, multidisciplinarian, uh, ask, get that part of your brain to kind of filter and then, excuse me, and then create kind of like I'll give you an example. Like Michael Jackson has a painting that he had commissioned on his wall, and it's called Heroes. And on it's a Michael Jackson in a what is it? Last Supper,
Huh.
and but it's Michael Jackson. Like a lot of people, they're really into the frequencies, vibrational frequencies. You have to get if you're gonna be one of the greats, you got to be in, you have to be in that frequency. So his heroes, what he wanted his narrative to be expressed on his left, on that painting, Michael Jackson was in the middle. Uh, on the left was Charlie Chaplin, then Little Richard, then Elvis Presley, then there's Walt Disney. Then on the other side, there's Albert Einstein and Thomas Alva Edison and I think Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. And
Hmm.
that's the narrative of Michael Jackson.
Hmm.
He wanted to say that was his
Hmm.
goal. This is what he wanted to look like. This is one,
That's
and that's where
fascinating.
I always love to go in a deep dive because whether you're doing a Star Wars is, as we talked about earlier, is that Star Wars is an amalgam of different things. It's the Searchers, it's Hidden, Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. Uh,
Hero's
it's a
Journey.
Yeah, the hero's journey. You've got Japanese anime.
Hmm.
Uh, you've got a lot of different things that there. I mean, he did a hodgepodge of different things, but it shouldn't have worked. It's Lord of the Rings, of course. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi is clearly Gandalf. But then all of a sudden, Harrison Ford is John Wayne. He's dressed in cowboy. I mean, he's a cowboy attire, and Luke
Hmm.
Skywalker is wearing, uh, kind of this karate outfit on the top.
Wow.
And that's what's so interesting. Yeah, and then so there's a word called kit bashing that was developed from Star Wars because they in trying to create new special effects. George Lucas went to local comic book conventions, and he would see these teenagers who created these models based on they would take up different model kits and put them all together and create something new out of them. So he hired all these people, and it became the early ILM. And so they would what's called kit bashing, model kits, and they bash up different model kits, and they would make these new the AT-ATs, the TIE fighters, the Imperial Walkers. I mean, all these different things. The Millennium Falcon. That's something that again there's a great what was it I think it's a documentary called Everything is a Remix, and remix culture is everywhere, and so you have to learn how to remix as a writer, right? You take all these things because that's the thing. It's like everyone
A
takes
good
one
way to put
writer.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a great way to put it.
but everyone is a remix of everything. Like
Yep.
every single filmmaker will come in, and you're like, really? This? I mean, he's watching this person, and
Well,
you
pretty
know.
much everything is iterative. And that's, I think, your
Mhm,
point about Michael Jackson and these great filmmakers from the past is that they were trailblazers and they
mhm.
did come up with things we hadn't. I mean, maybe in the human condition, we all have the same thoughts and all that stuff is in there. But for those people to be able to express, um, really takes it to the level of genius, which we're so lucky we have those people. And um, I don't mean to cut you off because this has really, really been interesting, but gosh, it's already 20 after our
This might be our longest
don't
session
want to
yet
hold people up.
because we've had such a wonderful
Yeah,
conversation, and
yeah,
thank you so much, Leo. Before
Thank
we
you.
go, I just want to, for those that don't know about our retreat, there's several that have attended today that are coming to our retreat in the fall. It's going to be in October in England for 6 nights, 7 days. And so if you were interested in spending a week with Hollywood and British professionals to help
and some
you with
really great
your
writers.
script and
Yeah,
some, yeah, I mean, the we have almost half of our attendees from last year's retreat returning this year. They want to experience it again, and we're happy because they're wonderful people. So if you want to form a community, be mentored by professionals, have experiences with professional actors, and a beautiful private estate, check out the link I just put in the chat box, or email us. You can find information on our website.
yeah.
We'd love for you to apply and consider coming. But Leo, back to you. Thank you so much for spending
Thank you,
time with
Leo.
us. This has been
Yeah,
so interesting, and I know everybody has enjoyed it. And I have
yep.
asked lots of questions, and
Thank you.
this obviously we could. This will
We
be
need
an
to have you
ongoing
back for three
conversation.
hours. Yeah,
Yeah, we need.
I
Yeah, we
love
could
it.
pick a film
yeah.
history, or I mean, there's so much about pop culture. I know people would be fascinated by that as well. But anyway, thanks again, and everybody have a lovely Memorial Day weekend, and we will see you next week. Same time with two of our upcoming mentors at the retreat, Joan Lane and Janet Batchelor. So we're excited to have them. They're both really fun and very wise people, and you're gonna learn a lot by showing up. So we'll see you next Saturday, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks again,
Thank you,
Leo.
guys.